Hello and welcome to the Inspector General portion of NAVFAC Southeast New Employee Orientation. My name is Clayton Harland and I serve as the Commander Inspector General for NAVFAC Southeast. In this presentation, we'll discuss who the Inspector General is in relation to the command, the mission and role of the Inspector General, have a discussion on fraud awareness, and introduce why detecting fraud is everyone's responsibility, and finally, an overview of the primary duties of the Inspector General's office. Well, let's first clear up the misconceptions about the Inspector General, or IG, as the position is commonly known. When you hear the word general, many immediately think of military rank. However, within the NAVFAC enterprise, all but one of the IGs are civilians like myself. Even so, IGs have the authority to inspect and/or investigate most every aspect of the day-to-day activities carried out both at the Corps and every public works department within their area of responsibility. That authority does not give the IG permission to purposely search out individuals or work areas to find wrongdoing or catch employees in the act. Although IG investigations may discover activities that are illegal, IG offices do not conduct criminal investigations and do not have arrest powers, despite the badge. The IG refers those matters to NCIS, FBI, and the Department of Justice for review and action. Most importantly, the IG is not out to get you. In fact, the IG's most important contribution to the command is helping everyone do their best job as possible. The IG provides candid, objective, and relevant advice directly to the commanding officer, executive officer, and the executive steering group. The IG's office also emphasizes both individual and system integrity, ethics, and readiness across all business and support lines so that we can all do our jobs efficiently and effectively. By conducting fair, impartial, and confidential investigations brought through hotline complaints, the IG can effectively and timely present possible fraud, waste, and abuse issues to the command leadership to look for possible solutions. The official mission statement of NAVFAC Southeast IG office is to act as the eyes, ears, voice, and conscience of the command and the commanding officer. I have altered that description somewhat by indicating that the IG is the voice, conscience, and advisor of the command, as I believe that more effectively describes the role. The IG is not someone you should avoid or watch what you say around, but is someone who assists everyone in the command to move forward, grow, and improve. The IG accomplishes these goals by investigating allegations of fraud, waste, and abuse, coordinates with the command's internal review process, and through the command evaluation inspection programs to help us improve our techniques and systems, and to assist both civilian and military members in a teach-to-train atmosphere or relationship in improving or addressing command policies, regulations, and procedures. As of July 2020, the IG reports directly to the Vice Commander of NAVFAC Atlantic through the Inspector General Office in Norfolk, Virginia. I also report directly to both the skipper and the executive officer here in the Southeast. Finally, all hotline investigations are overseen by the Naval Inspector General in Washington, D.C. We've talked a little bit about fraud, waste, and abuse, but what does that mean? Fraud is any intentional deception or act designed to unlawfully deprive from the government something of value for yourself or others. In short, fraud is when you use your government job for your individual benefit at the expense of the government. Here are a few examples of fraudulent activities: seeking or accepting bribes in exchange of favors, making a false statement, submitting a false claim, hiding the truth or misrepresenting material facts in order to secure for yourself some type of benefit, usually money, presenting facts that go to your benefit, changing or substituting materials, falsifying records, and arranging some type of kickbacks. Please note that all of these examples can lead to legal actions and even criminal prosecution. Waste differs slightly from fraud in that it's more of an extravagant, careless, or needless expenditure of government funds or the consumption of some government property that results in deficient or ineffective practices. For example, paying $500 for hammers when they usually cost under $20. Waste can include elements of fraud, but for some reason cannot be prosecuted as a criminal or civil action. Abuse can be either the misuse of authority, or resources that contradict the right and lawful use of that authority or resource. We see this most often in superior's abuse of his or her authority in the workplace, as well as misuse of government resources made available to individuals, such as the government travel credit card. Please be aware that when dealing with cases of abuse of authority, the IG may not be the only or best avenue to pursue. The Navy has established designated offices such as the Equal Employment Office and the Labor Employee Relations to address certain factors that may be the cause of the alleged abuse of authority. Keep in mind that fraud, waste, and abuse is in some fashion stealing, not only from our command, but also with the government and from the U.S. taxpayers. One reason, stated bluntly, it's about the money. Approximately 6% of all taxpayer-funded projects and purchases are lost to fraud each year. You can see that would add up to tens of billions of dollars wasted each year in the Department of Defense projects alone. Currently, the Navy, and specifically our command, have been asked to operate on less money than the year before. Funds lost to fraud makes our job only harder and can play havoc in executing mission-essential plans. And unfortunately, smaller budgets can result in smaller workforces. Also, fraud, waste, and abuse has directly led to the endangerment of property, service members, co-workers, and others. Fraud in the form of cutting corners and skimping on building materials has the very real possibility of structural deficiencies, subpar construction, and facility failures that could result in property damage, injury, and even death. Finally, if I have not provided you enough reasons why you should be on the lookout for fraud, waste, and abuse, it is your job. The standard of ethical conduct mandates all civilian employees to disclose any fraud, waste, and abuse they witness or have knowledge of to the appropriate authorities. In our command, the IG serves as the principal person to whom those types of complaints are reported. The size of our command and vast amount of work our command does on a day-to-day basis makes it impossible for a single-person IG office to do their job without your support. The use of internal controls and audits and external audits help identify potential risk and even occasionally reveals actual fraud activities that can be addressed early on. Though some risks are identified accidentally by management, the vast majority of potential fraud risk and actual fraud cases are discovered by an anonymous or confidential tip by a team member who has observed the action and reported it to the IG or management. Please remember that the success of the IG relies on each member of our team. Statistics tells us about 85% of people who are caught committing fraud had no previous record or conviction for fraud. So, in the absence of any type of fraud history, we naturally go to look at those individuals who have probably the most opportunity or greatest opportunity to commit fraud. We can easily identify some of those people, such as vendors and contractors, individuals that oversee contracting processes, individuals who are responsible for the oversight of contracts and or certifying the completion of those contracts, individuals who oversee the accounting paperwork, as well as those who receive and ship products on behalf of our command. If you notice that, hey, anyone who works within our command could have the potential and opportunity to commit fraud, you would be right. Here's a list of red flags or behaviors that individuals had displayed prior to the discovery of fraud activity. Do any of your coworkers seem disgruntled or always complaining about the work environment? Do you consider any of your coworkers as big spenders and living beyond their means? Have you observed any of your coworkers having more than a professional relationship with contractors, vendors, and suppliers? Do any of your coworkers have the reputation of being a rule breaker and take shortcuts? Are you or any of your coworkers experiencing financial difficulties due to medical expenses, gambling debts, drug or alcohol dependency, or from making poor spending decisions and have overextended credit lines? NAVFAC Southeast has in place many services and outlets to help you navigate these difficult times through our Human Resources Officer. In fact, one way some of our coworkers have gotten the help needed came through a report of potential fraud to the IG or supervisor when one coworker observed these conditions in another coworker. Though we may not know some of the causes for or even see some of the red flags, certain activities may suggest potential fraud, waste, and abuse activities. Have you seen or do you know that your coworker has been arrested, used a government-owned vehicle to run errands or other personal use, used a rental car while on approved government travel for vacation or non-duty purposes, accidentally using the government travel credit card for non-government travel expenses, repeatedly. You can probably think of additional examples that would fill several more slides. I encourage you to please report any concerns to your chain of command or to the IG through one of the hotline complaint options. To wrap up this section on fraud awareness, I want to share with you some real-life examples of fraud, waste, and abuse. The first scenario provides a clear example of fraud by both a contractor and a coworker. A contractor performing installation services inflated carpet measurements for non-existent stairs and second deck of a one-story building and submitted the charges for payment. A staff sergeant responsible for the carpet installation inspection certified the measurements and reasonable charges and approved the invoice for payment. Luckily for the government, but unfortunate for the contractor, the Navy IG received a hotline complaint as to the fraud from the contractor's angry wife. The next scenario demonstrates how employees have misused the ordering process for personal gain. A NAVFAC employee used existing supply contracts to over-order building materials, who took the excess home for his own personal use. Once again, the tip came from a coworker who made a hotline complaint to the Navy IG. The employee was terminated and had to pay back the Navy for the materials used. This scenario provides a look at what might happen when the temptation to let Uncle Sam pay the tab. This supervisor committed both abuse and fraud against the government by using the gas fleet card to fill up his and other personal vehicles. The total amount fraudulently charged equals $6,700. This theft did result in a criminal prosecution by the federal government, and obviously the employee lost his job. As part of the successful prosecution, the supervisor had to pay restitution to the Navy. The last scenario features a naval officer overseeing the contract selection process and so happened to also be looking to retire and secure a job. The officer awarded a contract to a company that became his future employer. The Navy IG received a hotline complaint well after the contract award and the naval officer's retirement. The IG investigation of this fraud against the Navy and the abuse of the naval officer's authority resulted in a criminal conviction of the retired officer with a 1-year probation sentence and a fine of $15,000. The primary focus of the IG is to investigate hotline complaints that allege fraud, waste, and abuse activities that happen within the command. Up to this point, you know what actions might be considered fraudulent, wasteful, and abusive. Here are some examples of allegations that have been investigated right here in the Southeast. Fraudulent contract practices by vendors, suppliers, and the boss contractors. Actions and omissions by contracting officers and representatives. Buy American Act violations. Hiring, recruiting practices. Questionable time, attendance, and overtime reporting. Outside employment ethics, charitable solicitation violations, the Hatch Act violations, and more. Should you believe that you have information regarding these or similar prohibited activities, you have the proactive duty to report them. The various IG programs have established several ways you may file a complaint through hotline systems. These systems allow someone to make complaints by telephone, email, online, or fax. Before you file a complaint, I want to provide you with a few suggestions and notices. First, the purpose of any IG investigation is discovering the facts that may prove or disprove the allegations and present those facts to the responsible decision maker. Secondly, not every complaint will be investigated, as there may be other people within our organization that are better suited or charged to address the allegations or actions requested. Please note that if you do file a complaint, please provide as much details, names, and specific information as you can in the initial information submitted. The more details that an investigator has from the beginning may help with the timeliness and correct identification of the parties and issues involved. You can see an example complaint form on the Naval Inspector General's website, or feel free to contact me and I can provide you a copy. You can file a complaint anonymously, but by doing so, the IG will not know who to contact for follow-up information or to clarify the actual allegations, which may result in the inability to investigate, which then could lead to a dismissal of the matter without any resolution. Should you provide your name, you may request to remain confidential, meaning your identity will be known only to the Inspector General's office personnel and not shared. The IG will take every precaution to safeguard the complainant's identity. However, that confidentiality is not absolute. There may be some instances in which higher authority or the nature of the allegation will require the identity of the complainant to be made known to the responsible management authorities. The second major area the IG focuses on is inspections, evaluations, and the annual Manager's Internal Control Program, or MICP. The objective of these programs is to ensure the inspected command, personnel, and systems have in place the processes to achieve compliance regarding the policies, laws, regulations, and parameters governing the work performed. These programs assist the local command and higher echelons with objective information to determine the performance of the inspected programs and how to improve them. Please take note of the different focuses and purposes of a command inspection and of a command evaluation. On a more local level, the MICP serves as an annual assessment tool for the Navy. The MICP assists managers and supervisors in the evaluation of the effectiveness their programs provide and the current assessment of risk the program may fail to carry out. The managers ensure the resources under their direct control, allowing those controls to increase both efficiency and effectiveness of their programs. The MICP was established by Congress through the Federal Managers Financial Integrity Act. The goal of the Act was to establish processes to protect against fraud, waste, and abuse, while at the same time minimizing risks through internal oversight and self-reporting practices. The program is meant to be proactive and transparent to catch process deficiencies and share successful and effective practices. My job as IG is to coordinate the assessments prepared locally, identify achievements and risks, and then present that information to the next level. In this case, NAVFAC Atlantic. The final product, prepared by the NAVFAC Inspector General in Washington, D.C., submits the report for the entire NAVFAC enterprise to the Chief of Naval Operations, and then presents the report to the Secretary of the Navy. Another responsibility the Command IG has is to serve as the Command Audit Liaison Program Coordinator. The coordinator of this program serves as the point of entry and the point of contact for all external audits of the Command. Specifically, those audits that come from the Government Accountability Office, the Department of Defense Inspector General, and the Naval Audit Services. The coordinator then identifies those in the command that will serve as the subject matter experts and will be the direct point of contact for the information and documents requested by the auditors. The coordinator also organizes meetings and ensures that all corrective measures and actions that have been recommended have been evaluated and implemented, and then finally reports the progress made on those actions. Thank you for watching this segment of NAVFAC Southeast New Employee Orientation. Should you have any questions or would like to receive a copy of any form or program discussed, please feel free to contact me by phone or email, and I'll be happy to speak with you. And remember, should you witness any fraud, waste, or abuse, please report that via the hotline complaint line. Thank you and welcome to NAVFAC Southeast.